Today, in fact, kicks off the DNC convention in Chicago, and it is pure joy. It's pure joy. Everybody is excited. Don't you be fooled by the massed protesters outside or by feeble Joe Biden, who has to do his walk of shame and humiliation speech. Trust. It's pure joy. It's pure joy. This is what's so amazing about the DNC convention that is happening in Chicago as we speak. It's really not a convention. This is just a block party. They've already nominated Kamala Harris. They did that in a virtual roll call a couple of weeks ago. So this is just a block party. They're going to have all these people speaking and coming out and performers, and they're going to try to shove down our throats that everybody loves Kamala. Everybody wants Kamala. She's got the best policy ideas. What are they again? She's so capable and she's got all of this under control, like she has all of these years that she was the vice president and when she was running in 2020. They're going to paint it like it's just pure joy and everybody's excited. Meanwhile, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people in reality are outside protesting Kamala Harris. They are protesting her. They're protesting the war. They are chanting Killer Kamala, and they're also chanting Genocide Joe. I think we actually have a little clip of them chanting Killer Kamala, but it's joy. Watch this.
Killer Kamala is her name. Killing children is her game. Killer Kamala is her name. Killing children is her game. Genocide Joe is his name. Killing children is his game. Chicago, I can't hear you.
So the what's interesting about this is really going to be pressuring Kamala Harris to make a firm stand on Israel, Gaza, or she could just continue to ignore it the way that she has. She hasn't really said a lot about it except, I'm speaking, right, to the protesters at one point in one of her speeches. I'm speaking. She then modified that. That wasn't the best response. People ridiculed her, raked her through the coals for that response. It was very much the type of response that she gave in 2019 that ultimately made it to where she didn't end up the Democratic nominee, she didn't even make it to the primaries. So then she modified it and she says, look, we hear you. We're gonna do something about it. But it's all just lip service, and these protesters know that. So Kamala Harris has a serious problem with her own base. You don't see this with the Donald Trump voters. I wish that the Donald Trump voters would also protest his stance on Israel, Gaza, because he is much worse on the issue. He is all in for Israel. He's got strong ties to Netanyahu. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Netanyahu are very close friends. Jared Kushner makes a lot of money off of settlement expansion in the West Bank. So Donald Trump has invested interests, like actual financial, monetary invested interests that benefit his daughter, who he loves, Ivanka, and their children, who he adores. Those projects benefit his closest and favored child. And so Donald Trump has a much worse stance when it comes to Israel-Palestine, no doubt about it. He's done so much for the state of Israel and has done so little, in fact, done the opposite for Palestinians, really harmed the Palestinian cause. But we don't see the protesters out there for Donald Trump. But we are seeing them for Kamala. And yet, nonetheless, they're trying to tell us it's joy. It's joy. Everybody is so joyful that Kamala Harris is the nominee. It's just pure joy. Meanwhile, poor Joe Biden, can we just show a little bit of poor Biden here? He's being forced to show up at this DNC convention, which was supposed to be his block party, nominating him for the second time, only up until a couple of weeks ago when the Democratic establishment booted him, which really is astonishing that that's even allowed. It's astonishing that the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and people in Congress, which is supposed to be a separate, equal, but separate branch of government, were able to force out the duly elect. Well, okay, we'll just say duly elected. I mean, we'll have that debate another day, but let's just say, because let's say, they could do this at any time. Now that they've got this power, and now that they see they have this power, they could do this at any time to anybody. And that's what's so dangerous about this. It's not just about Joe Biden. It's about the fact that these congressional leaders, who are the ones really, really bought off by the big lobbies, they don't work on behalf of the American people. They work on behalf of their big donors. And it's really shocking that they're able to basically stage a coup right in front of our faces and boot a guy So they booted Joe Biden, and poor Joe Biden is being forced now to do his humiliating walk of shame at the DNC. And he's got to give a humiliating speech where he has to pretend to not be humiliated and instead pretend like this was all his idea to pass the torch, as they're saying, to Kamala Harris, rather than, look, you got cooed. They you know, they got rid of you. They got rid of you, and they could do it to somebody else. And the fact that they crowned Queen Kamala, also very dangerous precedent. What they've done is incredibly dangerous, because this is not the last time that we're going to see this. People might try to tell themselves right now, the Democratic voting base, the vote blue no matter who, they're trying to tell themselves right now, they're consoling themselves. And they're saying, well, this was extraordinary circumstances because Joe Biden clearly has mental decline. Guys, we knew that. We've known he's had mental decline for a while. This is not new. So he's got mental decline, and we've known this, but they were able to stage a coup against him. The Democratic leadership from a different branch of government were able to stage a coup against him. And not only do that, but they were able to then crown a queen without a vote at all. So this isn't going to be a one-time thing. They've got this power, and we know how power goes. Once you get it, you never give it back. They're never giving this power back to the voters, ever. The Democratic Party is toast. They are done for. This is it. Because they now see they don't have to. They now see that the Democratic voting base will just gobble up whatever they give them. I mean, luckily, there are a bunch of protesters out there saying, we actually aren't gobbling this up. But they don't care about them. They just write them off as Hamas supporters, Hamas sympathizers, terrorists, right? What they've done is so incredibly dangerous. I can't stress this enough. We will never see the Democratic Party revert back to actually being a Democratic Party. They might stage some primaries when Kamala's going to, okay, again, I have to frame this carefully. Kamala's going to be the next president of the United States. I'm not claiming she's going to win, if you catch what I'm throwing. I think probably Trump wins, but Kamala ends up the president. That's just how it's going to be. And when they do that, they'll see that they could just do this over and over and over again. They can get away with it. And if they get away with it once, they'll get away with it again, and they'll pretend, oh, no, it was your idea. It was your idea for Kamala Harris. Don't you know, voter, you who voted for Kamala, win? None? Oh, it's okay. You wanted her. We know. We just read your mind and gave you what you really wanted. So that is what's so dangerous. What's really amazing, though, about this DNC convention is that this is so reminiscent of 1968. It is scary. I have been saying since Joe Biden became president and they made Kamala Harris vice president, I was saying from the beginning that, oh, they're going to swap him out with her. I changed my tune on that a little bit because I thought, stupidly, that the Democratic Party actually kind of still sort of cared about what voters thought. Turns out they don't. I thought there's no way they're now going to go forward with that plan that was very obvious to me that they were implementing back when Joe Biden was the nominee, and then when he was the nominee, and then they put Kamala Harris as his VP. It was obvious to me what the plan was, that they were going to swap him out. But then her numbers were so bad, and she just wasn't taking to the public. I think their plan was they put her in that, the pantsuit and stick her near the Oval Office, and people would start to associate her with the Oval Office, and they would start to say, oh, we like Kamala Harris. In fact, we even like her better than Joe Biden, and they'd start to demand her. That was their plan, but that's not how it panned out. What panned out was people stopped liking Kamala. They liked her less. So I thought for sure, well, they got to care a little bit about what people think. And there's no way they're going to replace Joe Biden with her. I knew they were going to replace him, but I thought maybe they'd put Newsom in. I think there was maybe a plot and a plan to maybe do a swap. But I think they realized, you know what, guys, we can get away with anything. We actually don't have to care at all what the voters think or want. We'll just tell them what we're going to do. And they're now so groomed to just doing what they're told. The pandemic showed us that we'll just tell them Kamala Harris is your person, and they'll accept it. Even though they don't like her, they'll kind of go, what, at first, but then they'll just accept it. They will, because we'll tell them to, and we'll get all the liberal media to tell them to, and we'll get all the liberal media to say, joy, it's joy. Don't you feel that joy? If you just say it to a person enough, maybe they'll actually feel it. And that's their plan, and that's what they've done. And this is so similar to the 1968 convention when the Democratic Party didn't listen to the voters at all, and they instead stuck in Hubert Humphreys, which nobody voted for. And they didn't care. They didn't give a damn. They said, screw you, voters. We don't care. And there was a raging war going on in Vietnam. And protesters were out front of the DNC convention demanding an end to the war. And they were pissed off that Humphreys was just going to be anointed in. Now, that was a different time. They're kind of saying, are we going to see these types of violent riots like what broke out in 1968? Are we going to see something like that at the DNC convention this year? I doubt it. And the reason I doubt it is because 1968 was a very different time than we're in now. They've now groomed us for decades to just comply. In the 60s, people were less compliant. This was right at the very beginning. 1968 was right at the very beginning when the three-letter agencies really started, the deep state started really running things, right? They killed Kennedy, and then they showed that they were, people didn't want to believe that. You know, they were still in a time frame where they weren't aware of the fact that the three-letter agencies, the deep state, was running things. And now we've had decade after decade after decade of the deep state really just grooming people to just accept what they're given. Like, you can't do anything about it, so don't even try. And that's where we're at today. So I don't think these protests are going to turn into some violent chaos like what we saw with, they're saying, well, BLM, won't it be something like that? No, because that was actually egged on by the Democratic leadership. They were wanting that. This time they don't want this, and they're the ones in charge. So, when your leadership says get out there and burn shit up, then I guess that's what you do. But if they don't say that to you, and if they say, no, joy, then that's also what you kind of do. You sort of joyfully protest. But it is good to see all the protesters out there. It's good that they're out there speaking their mind. It is great that they're out there showing Kamala Harris that we are not in support of this war, and to do something, to be different, to actually put an end to it. There they are, the joyful protesters. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I want to talk more about Kamala Harris. Guess what we get to look forward to when, I should say, she becomes president? More authoritarian dictatorship level control over our lives. So you'd think Democrats would have let go of vaccine mandates at this point, but nope. According to Kamala's campaign jobs page, staffers must be up to date on their COVID-19 vaccines. Yeah. What does that even mean, by the way? What does up to date actually mean? So according to her campaign website, it actually says Harris for president requires all employees to be up to date on COVID-19 vaccination status as prescribed by the CDC as a condition of employment unless otherwise prohibited by applicable law. If you seek a reasonable accommodation in relation to the campaign's COVID-19 policy, don't even come and apply. Just kidding, it doesn't quite say that, but it does say you should speak to the HR department prior to reporting to an office location. Yeah. So what does it mean to be up to date? I'm so amazed that Democrats are still holding on to this. It's shocking. It's appalling. It is everything none of us want. This is exactly why I don't want Kamala Harris or another Democrat to get into the Oval Office or to regain, or I guess they have it now. So they just got to go. This is authoritarian. It's insane. They put us through hell during the pandemic, and they have no intention of stopping. They have learned no lessons. The COVID-19 vaccine did not stop the spread of COVID. In fact, it didn't even stop you from getting sick from COVID, and it didn't stop you from dying from COVID. But nonetheless, they're still pushing these vaccines because Big Pharma says so. So what does it mean to be up to date? Well, you would have received back in 2021, you would have received your original 2 doses, right? If you took Pfizer, I guess if you took Johnson & Johnson, you'd have 1 dose. Since then, they have recommended 4 additional boosters. So 4 additional boosters on top of your 2 initial doses. So you'd be 6 shots in right now if you want to go work for Kamala Harris. Now, if you're a little younger, you might have gotten away with 5 shots. But if you want to go work for Kamala Harris's campaign, you need to have taken the jab 5 or 6 times. 5 or 6 times. And for what? I mean, everybody around me right now is getting COVID, and they're all saying, I took the booster. I can't believe I got sick again. And I'm like, what did you learn from the first 2 doses? You got COVID. What did you learn after your first booster? You still got COVID again. Here you are now, 3 boosters deep, and you're still getting COVID. At what point are you going to stop taking the boosters? At what point are you just going to say, Kim, you were right? They don't ever say that to me, especially not my family members, but but it's a dream. I have that dream that maybe people will actually say, Kim, you were right. Oh my gosh. Oh, never going to happen. Instead, they're saying, no. Kamala Harris even requires all of her staff to have the boosters, 4 boosters in. So get it. Don't be a Trump-loving vaccine science denier. So yeah, if you want to work for Kamala Harris, you're going to need to get but none of you are really going to go work for Kamala, right? So you don't have to worry about it. But it's just crazy. And it just goes to show where the Democratic Party still is, where they're going to lead us. Now that we've got another potential pandemic on the horizon, which we'll talk about, this is, they're just going to be jamming us full of junk. I don't even know what is coming up in the future. I know what's next, but I don't know what's going to come up after that and after that and after that if we allow this to continue. Hey guys, this was just a clip of a longer show. Catch the full show by going to KimIversonShow.com. It is free. It airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You could go back now and watch this full interview. I highly recommend it. Again, go to KimIversonShow.com. Thank you so much for watching.